Hey everyone, this is Zoras from Not Casuals, and in today's video we're gonna do a commander's guide on Yi Seong-Gye, or YSG, the best legendary commander in the game for a very long time. We're gonna go over his skills, his talents, his pairings, as well as some very important information about him during the early game in KVK 1 and going further into the game with him. What does it involve? How to maximize his value, especially for free-to-play and pay-to-win players. So I'm going to start with some basic information on YSG. He comes on your kingdom on day 94-ish, around that, which is basically the second set of Wheel of Fortune. So you'll have one Universal Wheel, 3 Richard Wheel, 1 Universal Wheel, and then 3 Yi Seong-Gye Wheel. That will arrive approximately at the first week or 1 week before the first KVK starts for your kingdom, and will finish during the middle of your KVK 1. It will be then followed by Khan, which is a cavalry commander. Now, YSG is, I would say, the first real archer commander that makes archer good at this game. Anybody who's played KVK 1 knows that it is very, very infantry and cavalry heavy, but when YSG comes in the game, he becomes the best rally leader in the game to attack defensive positions because everybody uses a Richard with infantry, and YSG paired with someone like El Cid is a complete counter to a Richard Martel defensive infantry and absolutely demolishes that. So in KVK 1, I would say that YSG is the #1 most important commander by far in the game for both whales to max out and use as a rally leader, and for any players to use as a just general commander to defend your city, defend objectives, or farm barbarians like crazy. Now, why is YSG so good? The reason is this here. Rain of Arrows is by far the best ability that this commander has. Obviously, it's his first ability, which is the one you should max out first before you do anything. Bring him to at least 5 ability points in there, and then you can go forward. This ability, as you can see, when it's expertise, will do a direct damage of an incredibly high value to enemy in a circular area, and then will do less damage for as many enemies are hit. So in general, this ability does kind of what you're used to on Sun Tzu and Aethelflaed. It does like a cone in front of you of AoE, but when you are YSG, it's an entire circle around you. Now this makes an insane difference, especially in War or KVK, when you put someone, let's say in this flag, like Charles as a leader for defensive, and then YSG as a secondary, which means that you will have a 0.5 million troops inside of this flag that will be defending and creating an AoE with scaling with the amount of troops that is in the flag, which creates a very, very high damage. Now, I have battle reports from RKVK where we've killed 1.6 million units from only one YSG's AoE. That's not counting the actual battle. It's really just what YSG was doing, AoEing all the armies coming to reinforce or fighting in the open field because they don't realize that there's a YSG. And it's basically decimating everyone. It's absolutely insane. It creates such a good value because it makes it so that people cannot approach the flags that you are either attacking or defending when there's a YSG. So that is #1, and enough reasons alone to expertise this commander by far. Now, I also made a video very recently last week that explains how to chain farm barbarians, where you would use someone like YSG and go into a place with a lot of barbs, and you would attack this one, and then the circular AoE would make this one attack you, and then you would move around and go to this one, and then they would all attack you for free, basically meaning that your commander will kill them without having to spend ability power or ability points, which is this thing here. So you don't have to spend any of the AP when you're killing these barbarians because the AoE of Yi Seong-Gye will aggro them. So if you want to check that video out, it is very useful. This is also one of the reasons why YSG is so valuable, because the entire duration of your gameplay in Rise of Kingdom, you will be fighting barbarians. Now, if every time you kill a barbarian you get 2 or 3 or 5 or 50 for free, which you can do, trust me, you basically create an insane amount of values, because what you get from barbarian? Gems. All of these little arrows of resistance, experience, speed ups, and resources. Now, if you're a free-to-play player or a low spender, getting gems like this is the #1 thing that will bring you value, because it is basically a way to infinitely farm gem by taking your time and converting it into free gem. You spend 50 AP and you chain properly, you can get hundreds of gems every 50 AP. Now, that is alone two of the biggest, most important reasons why YSG is amazing. There's also obviously the fact that he's itself a great commander. He has the archer and skill tree as well as garrison, so he makes a great defender but also a great archer commander. And having the skill tree as well as the ability here that increases skill damage by very much, it creates a very, very good secondary commander as well as a very, very good primary commander. Now, when you are playing YSG, if you are going to bring him as a primary commander, you'll obviously want to bring him as level 50, 60 right away to get as many talent points and use him as leading an army, hopefully of archers, but not obligatorily. Now, we'll go over his skills, but you can see that there is only one skill here that basically gives an archer attack bonus when doing attack. So it's a % chance of getting a little bit of archer attack bonus, but also restore rage. So the ability itself is great without the archer bonus. So if you don't look at that archer bonus, everything else doesn't have to do with archers. So basically, it is not 100% mandatory to bring an army of archers. Of course, if he is your primary commander and you have the archer tree, you have to have an army of archers. But you can use him as a secondary commander to, most specifically, an infantry army led by commanders like Richard, for example. You can also use him as a secondary to someone like Aethelflaed or someone like Sun Tzu, as well as you can even use him as a secondary to someone like Minamoto, because he's also a very high skill damage commander that will make it so that this is boosted and he does more damage. So Yi Seong-Gye is unique in the sense that he doesn't really care about his unit type as much and is very versatile. He is, most people say, the best secondary commander in the game because he fits with almost everyone. He just works with everyone. So I'm going to go over the skills quickly. So as we said before, the Rain of Arrows, it's a big AoE. So AoE means area of effect, which means it targets more than one enemy at once. So you're getting a lot of value for one attack. You're hitting 3 enemies. It's a lot of value. Obviously up to 5 target and will deal an amount of damage that's very high. Of course, there's less damage if you hit more than one target, but still, the first target you hit has the maximum damage. Everybody else has a bit less, but it's still completely free damage if you hit more than one target. Now, it's a big circle, as we said, so in PvP, when you're fighting in the middle of a field, you'll hit a lot of people, as well as in Expedition, in Sunset Canyon. This is one of the best ability. He does an incredibly high amount of damage, and it will prove its worth very, very well. Now, if you are going to play Yi Seong-Gye, you need to have this ability at level 5, else he is unusable. So no matter what you do, get this ability level 5 before you level him up anyways. You do not want to not have this ability at level 5. You can also use this ability, which of course is a very nice passive ability that creates a Rage Restoration, which is a rage engine in order for you to have more of your ability, this first one that is insane damage. So when you attack anyone, you have a chance of getting rage up to 100, which is a really, really high amount, as well as if you have an archer unit army, you will have extra damage for your archer, which in itself is a very, very good boost. Now, when you're playing YSG, the recommended is you either go full expertise, because he is the priority #1 in terms of expertising any legendary commander in the game. Otherwise, if you cannot achieve that or you do not want to achieve that, you need at least 5 skill here. You could do 5, 1, 1, 1, but the best scenario is 5, 5, 1, 1. This ability is a garrison ability, so it's not as important to level up. So if you don't have this ability, like you only have 1 talent, it's okay. It's not a big deal. But in itself, it's a pretty good ability because it increases the attack bonus of your garrison and both Watchtower as well. So that is a very, very high value when you realize what both of these combined means. And the last ability, which is probably one of his best, but because it is the last, it is harder to level up, but it just increases skill damage. So basically, this will do 50% more damage. Now, it will all work with the talents and items and stuff on top of it. So of course, this is a very, very good ability. But if you have a 5, 5, 1, 1, you will still gain a very decent amount of damage. You'll still get 20% at least. And then you will try and put more talents, more sculptures into him over time. And hopefully, they will land in here. But as a 5, 5, 1, 1, he does a very decent amount of damage because this ability is, instead of being a circular, it's still a cone, which is still great, especially for a lot of the content like PvE and stuff. And it's harder for Barb by training, but it still works. The same as if you were using Itel Fed or Sun Tzu. And then this ability is his Rage Generation. So those two are basically the must. Now, if you're a very, very low spender or a very free-to-play player and you really cannot do this or you really do not want to do this, if you do 5-1-1-1, he is okay. He is still good. He will be used only as a secondary commander in this case. But I would recommend that you at least wait or try and save up to get 5-5-1-1, because then if he's 5-5-1-1, you can take a year before you expertise him and you will still be able to use him this entire time. Now, if you go 5-1-1-1 and you want to expertise him and your points drop 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, now you're going to have a 5-2-3-1. It's, you can get screwed very easily and he will lose a lot of his performance. So obviously, as I said, I recommend you expertise him because he is the most worth expertising, but 5-5-1-1 is otherwise what I suggest you do before you level him up to unlock all his abilities. Now, personally, I am using him as a secondary commander. As you can see, he's only level 34. I personally put Kunosoki as his primary, or otherwise I put him as a secondary to Charles Martel, which is a maxed out level 60 for me. So, of course, he does a very, very good job as a secondary. And when he is a secondary, he doesn't need to be higher level than 20. Now, mine is level 34 just from Barb training. I haven't even put any XP in him. He just kills the Barb as a secondary commander and gains the XP. So he will eventually reach max level. And this is what I want. I want to slowly and gradually max him out because I do not have the stars to 6-star him because I already have this one 6-star, this one 6-star, and this one is 5 and almost 6-star. So it takes a lot of stars to get them maxed out. So for me, he will be a later game priority. As a secondary though, he still shines like crazy. None of his abilities are affected by that. The only thing that doesn't matter is the talents and the equipment, so which is why he doesn't have much equipment nor talents. But if you were to use him as a primary, and he is very, very viable as a primary, especially for whales as rally commanders or as a full archer army. Now, when you're going to do this, if you're going into full archer open field, you will go here. You will want to have this ability because it's boosting an archer army like crazy. Now, there is many ways of doing that. I recommend, obviously, you max this entire thing and you get this ability. It is amazing. Also, here, this ability generates rage. Now, anything that generates rage for YSG is optimal because his ability that does the most damage is rage focused. So I would recommend you max this entire tree. You don't have to get these two abilities here. It's like, 4 talent points, but 1% attack and 1% attack here. So that's the total of 4% attack. That is a very, very high amount of stats for 4 talent points. So, you could max out this entire tree. And then for the rest, you will do the normal build of getting here. Rejuvenate is the #1 priority for any kind of skill-based hero because of the amount of rage it generates. So you would do this entire tree here, including this, which is another rage generation. So you do all this and get here. And then whatever you have left in terms of points, so if you're level 50 or level 60, it will depend, you will put around in here for more skill damage, and you can eventually reach up to here if you can. If you cannot because you've put more points around here, you will just go as far as possible. Usually you will reach here, or you'll have at least these things. So you basically want to have what I have here, but this will be your first talent tree. Now, as well, the alternative, and I will show this on my Kunosoki, is you can go full skill. Now, this is what I am. Now, he's level 51, so I have 9 more talent points that I could put him in eventually when I get level 60. But, you want to max out the skill tree because that is just amazing. Now, this ability here increases skill damage, but also increases the damage you take. So for me, I use them as a backline, so they're not tanking enemies as much, but if you are using them in the front line, this could maybe not be the best. So it's up to you if you want to put points in it. Now, this ability, people don't realize this, but additional skill damage is not the same as skill damage. So if you do skill damage, if you look at this ability will do a certain direct factor damage of 300. Now, additional damage factor is a different thing completely. So obviously, this hero has additional skill factor, a very low amount. But if you look at Yi Seong-Gye, he only has direct damage. So when we were speaking about this ability here, this talent, right here, Additional damage does absolutely nothing for YSG. He doesn't have additional skill damage, so this is 0%. So do not put points in this. I don't think there's any commander in this game that I would recommend putting points in this, because you don't really use two commanders that have this ability, at least at the beginning of the game. So for now, with YSG, that's a no. Now, secondly, I went all the way up to here because, again, it increases skill damage, so it's absolutely insane for a skill damage-based build, and I want to have this eventually when I reach enough points to get more rage, and afterwards, I will probably go around here, maybe try to reach here. You get as much as you can now. I don't have that many points to get everything, so you get what you can. There's a lot of really good here. You could put 3 points here, 3 points here. You can even go here, or you can go all the way up here and get like all these extra stats of health and stuff. As long as you get these two, you're gonna have the maximum value. So as I said, you have one tree that will be completely archer with a line into skill here, and then getting extra stuff here that you can, with this one being the priority because it's extra skill damage. Or you go full skill and get this line here as priority, as well as this line here as priority. Those are the two main builds. Now, the skill build will mean that you are very, very squishy. You will die if you're touched by any cavalry very quickly. So I often use my Konosuke in PvE content, which means like the Expedition and Sunset Canyon and Cerealis and stuff like that. So in this aspect, it doesn't really matter because first of all, you don't get injury, as well as he will be in the back line, so I'm going to send my infantry army tanking the hits of the enemy. Meanwhile, he's going to come in and attack and get counterattack damage, but nothing else. So skill build in that aspect does incredibly well, an incredible amount of damage. And I don't have archer tech specifically, so I don't want to be using full archer stuff. I really want to focus on the skill damage. Now, if you're going to be using archers and you're going to be an archer commander, you're going to be in the open field with the archers tree. You're going to do so much better. And you're going to do so much more damage, you're going to be more tanky. Of course, you're going to have less skill damage, big numbers, but you're going to last a lot longer in the field. So it depends on your playstyle. If you're a rally commander, you're going to be most likely archer. And if you're just a supporting or you're basically doing PvE, you're going to go skill. Now, in terms of equipment, I don't want to get too long into this because I just made a video, a complete guide about all the equipment, which is best for which unit type, what to go for in order of priority and color and rarity. So I will just say that, of course, if you're playing archer and he's your commander that is primary, you will want equipment. The revival set will be the best thing you can get in the game. It has complete boost to archer. Everything is really good for archer, and it gives peace bonuses, as well as this weapon right here will do a lot of archer stat, 13% defense, which, in terms of archers, defense is not the best stat, but it's still very good, and 13% is just too high of an amount to not count it, especially if you're a rally commander and you're using him to rally. This will be great. And there's a few other items around that are really good for archers. For example, this one gives archer health. So it's pretty straightforward in terms of what you're going to do. Otherwise, if you're going to do only blue and green items, you're going to have something that looks kind of like Konosuke right now. So, you have this armor, which has archer health. Now, I have the archer spec on it, so I get plus 2%. This gives archer defense. This gives archer defense. This gives archer attack. And this gives archer attack as well. And I don't have the helmet yet, but there is a helmet that's craftable, that's green, that gives a good archer boost. So you can get a very good set like I have right now for not an insane price. And then when you are ready, you can go to the revival set and get a very, very good stats. Now, lastly, I want to go over the pairings when you're using Yi Seong-Gye as both a primary and a secondary. Now, as a primary, if you're using Yi Seong-Gye as an archer leader or specifically a rally commander, the best secondary in the game at the stage when you are in KVK1 or a little bit after, where you don't have a million of these new archer commanders available, which is the stage that I'm in right now. So at the beginning, when you unlock Yi Seong-Gye, the best secondary commander for him is by far going to be El Cid. El Cid obviously is another legendary commander. It comes from the key. Only Wells will really be able to max him for a while, at least until there's like MGE that starts with him, and then obviously it depends on how you're playing. But his first ability, first of all, is another one of these big direct damage, which works very well with Yi Seong-Gye, as well as it does some disabling to the enemy army, which is great. Now, the secondary skill also gives a chance to do extra damage, which again scales very well with Yi Seong-Gye's skill damage based. And then this is boosting archer in general for defense and march speed, which march speed is not very useful in this case, but when you're running away from cavalry in the open field, this proves very useful. as well as there's some heal and damage bonus here that is gotten. So while Sid is still usable if you have, I would say, 5-1-1, but El Cid is very, very good when he's expertise, and if he's not expertise, he is not as good for non-well players. His expertise just brings him an incredibly high value extra skill of like 5% damage and attack and increased infantry damage done, which in itself might look small, but for a complete additional skill, it's like 12% stats, 2% damage, 10% stats. It's really, really high value. So the secondary commander for YSG that is the best, especially when expertise, is El Cid. Now, there are a few others that could qualify. I won't want to spend too much time on them. But for example, someone like Frederick, 5-5-1-1, which is very good for Frederick. Again, he's another really high skill based guy, so he would work pretty well, as well as having a little bit of a heal. But, you know, it's not the best. Of course, not everybody has availability. Like, I'm not, you can see mine is level 10 and 1. This is not commanders that I use because for the price and the cost, and archers are not so great at the beginning. This is not something that I'm investing in, but in the game as you further along, and if you get a very strong El Cid or Frederick, they will work very well with YSG. Again, it's pretty straightforward. If they have a high skill damage primary ability, it will usually work well with YSG. Now, of course, Herman has also an insanely big nuke, and he's a purple epic commander, so available for everyone. And this also silences and reduces rage, so this ability is really, really amazing. Now, he also gives boost of archer attack and movement speed, so he's kind of like a free-to-play version of El Cid. Of course, you want him expertise when you're going to use him as a secondary. He also has other buffs here that grants additional rage, which is something that YSG wants very desperately. I would say that out of all the epics, Herman is probably the best secondary for YSG, for the reasons of what I just said, as well as he also has some garrison stuff, but not that you're going to double garrison with archer commanders, but every other ability is amazing for YSG. Now, otherwise, obviously, Kusunoki has as well a high-ish damage factor here. Of course, 300 is not much with 250. I mean, added up, it's okay, 550. But the thing that is really good about it is that it's also AoE, and it has the same range, kind of, as a YSG. It's a cone in front of him. So if your YSG is not expertise, or even if he is, this still counts. It still adds up, double AoE, especially in front of him, and also makes it so they deal extra damage afterwards. So this all kind of works well with YSG. But I would still think that Herman does a little bit of a better job. In this, obviously, again, it's a garrison thing. It's not going to be very useful. Now, this is very good, especially when you expertise. That's 30% stat for Archer. That is a very, very high amount. So, in terms of being a good secondary, just boosting YSG's army, this is very, very good. So, I would recommend doing this, as well as this has a chance to do extra damage. Again, anything that does damage, we like. Now, one thing to mention here is that also this removes all negative control effects from YSG and Kunosoki's troops when they're together. This is kind of like a healing yourself or cleansing yourself of bad debuffs, which there are a lot in this game, and there are more as the game progresses. So Kusunoki has a very high value when paired against certain enemies who debuff and make it so that you take more damage or you take less healing and that kind of stuff. Other than that, I would say that if you're using YSG as a primary, you're going to want to focus on Archer, so you're going to have Archer Commander. So there's nothing else that will really work with him as a secondary. Now, you know, people like Aethelflaed and Joan and stuff, they buff and all that stuff, but it's, you know, yes, there is some damage here. But again, you're going to do much better if you're going to focus on a full Archer army with Archer talents, because YSG as a primary, you're going to be focusing on Archer. Now, if you're using YSG as a secondary, that is where he shines the most. Now, I won't go through everyone because, as I said earlier, he is good with everyone. There's almost no exception to this, especially anyone who has a skill that does damage. Now, one exception for this is Charles Martel, which is probably one of the most common combo. You have Charles primary, full infantry, and you use full infantry talents with some defense. And why that is this skill. It basically gives us a shield. So we like shields, it makes you last longer, as well as being infantry makes you very tanky, but it increases the troops damage by 30% while the shield is active. Now, because of these commanders, they are both high rage generation, especially YSG with his ability that regenerates rage. You will have quite a lot of this activation, which also means that every time it activates for 4 seconds, you do extra 30% damage. Now, this works very well with this. 1700 plus 50% here, and plus 30% here, you can see how it starts to add up to very, very big numbers, which is why this is used so much, because you basically are going to fight in the open field. People won't want to attack you because you're Martel, you're tanky, but you're going to be doing super high damage AoE in a circle around you, hopefully, while being shielded. So it's a very, very win-win situation. Now, everything else is about infantry, so Charles will do very well about being an infantry. I mean, obviously it's a defensive commander, also a garrison commander, but this ability alone with the 30% damage alone is worth it for this to work very, very well. Now, being assigned with Charles is not the best combination ever in terms of min-maxing what you do, but it is the best for open field fighting as well as a lot of garrison situation. Now, if you're going to do optimal optimization when you're going to use him in like expedition, or you're going to do like a 1v1 duel, or you're going to, you're not going to have much use from the AoE, or you're not going to have a scare of being attacked and your YSG dying too fast, there's a lot of combinations that work well. One of the other common one is Minamoto. Of course, Minamoto's main ability is full damage, which is very, very high as well. And it's obviously it's a cavalry commander that has a lot of boost to damage, and it has the skill talent tree. So a skill Minamoto with a YSG secondary. Now, this ability from YSG will also increase the skill damage of Minamoto, which makes them very, very strong. You're going to do AoE, and you're going to have cavalry army, which is going to move fast. So this works exactly very well, the same way as it's Charles. The only difference is that you are very squishy. There's no defensive ability. Cavs are not tanky at all compared to infantry. So it's going to be a hitting run damage kind of situation. You're going to go in, attack, and you're going to kind of run away. You're not going to be tanking damage. You're just going to be doing damage. So that is another situation where you can use him. Now, he's also very good used as a secondary to someone like Aethelflaed because, again, a high damage AoE factor in her ability. Now, she does very well with bringing mixed armies, so YSG doesn't care about that. He will actually boost the archers in that mixed army if you have them. So, again, that's another bonus. And it also has a higher rallied capacity bonus, so that means that you'll have more troops, which makes your scaling for the damage higher, so makes you do more damage. So again, this is a win-win situation when you're bringing it with YSG. It's just going to work well. It's not the best, but it works well. Now, when we go into the epic territory, Sun Tzu I think is #1 as primary for YSG. First of all, the main reason being that he is the best epic commander in the game. Also does an incredibly high AoE damage factor as well as rage generation, on top of being good with infantry, good in garrison, and this ability, which is the same kind of ability as YSG. Obviously, 20% is less than 50% here, but they are the same ability, kind of, they boost each other off, which makes it very, very good. It's additional, it's great, it works well together. Now, it's the same thing as Charles Martel. You're going to bring a full infantry army, and you're going to be probably either full skill with some infantry, or vice versa. Again, the full skill will be squishier, but more damage, and this will be tankier and more sustainable, while doing very good damage still. So Sun Tzu is a very, very, very great pair. Even as a secondary to YSG, it can kind of work, to be honest. So most people will do Sun Tzu primary, and you will have YSG secondary until you can manage to have a Martel high enough. Or you can use your Martel with someone else and use Sun Tzu as a skill just to do damage kind of thing while Martel is tanking. But that's another one that works very, very well. Now, lastly, I want to say about this Kusunoki, which obviously he is a very good archer commander. Again, we said earlier, all his abilities are really good for archers. And this ability does, first of all, AoE damage, as well as debuffing the negative effects from yourself. So removing those effects. Again, it has the skill tree and the archer tree. So I personally use this. Now, I have very bad archer tech. I don't use archers in the open field. If I'm doing open field against other players, YSG is a secondary to Charles Martel 90% of the time. But now when I'm doing content like Expedition, or I'm doing content like Sunset Canyon specifically, which doesn't care about your technology at all, I use a full archer army, and I use Kusunoki as my main, and then YSG as a secondary. And they definitely get a lot more boost out of that. Now, he's full skill with some archer, as I showed earlier, and he basically uses ability AoE with YSG's AoE. They both have some kind of like additional damage here and boost to archer units here. So it all works out together. There's not much wasted at all. It's a really good, strong archer march. This other alternative being Herman as a primary. Now, of course, you want these primaries to be as high level as possible to get the most out of the talents, but Herman also would work very well as a primary. The only difference is that I don't really care for the march speed bonus, but to make up for that, he does have a bit more rage generation in his abilities here. So, you know, it's a pretty even match. You can use either or as a primary commander. Obviously, I'll try and get this one level 60 as fast as possible to boost him even further. And eventually, when I have more archer tech, I will be able to bring full army of archers in the open field with Kusunoki, which will make me a lot better at doing what I'm trying to do with him. Now, there are other pairings, of course. You know, the general rule of thumb is you would look at their abilities, and if the first ability is high in damage and their other abilities make it so that they generate rage or they're tanky, YSG will most likely be a good secondary. Now, people can also use Richard. Now, YSG is not great with Richard, but Richard is so tanky, also heals so much, as well as tanks more with this preventing damage reduction and takes less damage from counterattack. So all of this basically means that you put YSG as secondary and the army never really dies. This is one of the ways that people use to chain a lot of barbs, because you basically just go around and never die while you're healing yourself and aggroing all of these mobs around, all these barbarians for free. So that is one way of doing it. So that's about it for YSG's guide, guys. As I said, you can almost never go wrong putting him as a secondary commander to almost anyone. You can also never go wrong expertising him first. I don't think I've said this enough already, so I'll say it again. If you are a new player in Rise of Kingdom, save every sculpture you have until YSG and expertise him. It will be the best value you will get out of this game by far, especially if you plan to play a long time. Again, as I said, KVK1, YSG is probably the best commander to have expertise or high level or strongly boosted for any player, for both defensive capability, rally capability, and open field combat. It will turn the tide of battle in your favor greatly. Now, people keep saying that infantry is the best for KVK1, and that's right for a lot of things, except that YSG LCID rallies will counter the hell out of it, and that is something that people seem to forget, because it happened 2 years ago when I did my first KVK, and it happened this KVK again, where nobody else has this but our rally commander, and everybody got crushed by him. So YSG is really, really, really a god in this game. I think every other content creator out there has been saying the same thing. It is the one you want expertise first. It is the most value you can get out of any commander in this game, and it is never too late to expertise him. Even if you haven't done it right off the bat, I would work on him. At least get him to 5.5.1.1 and use him as a good secondary for a lot of other commanders. Again, the same one as I said earlier, it works the same. And level him up, add statues over time, eventually you'll have him expertise. Also, when there's new commanders that come out like Turmeris and Edward and all these other archer guys, YSG works very, very well with almost every single one of them. And as well in your garrison, in order to not be swarmed, he will be a very, very good asset. So everything about YSG is good. I don't think there's anything else I can say. He's as you can see, he's expertise since the day I got him, and you can actually look here if you want, and you can see the amount of kills that he's had. Now, I've only had this commander for a few weeks, and I've already did 2 million kills with him alone, as well as barbarian kills, which is, you know, pretty impressive, especially because I use him as a secondary only. So this is all from his AoE almost only. If you have any question or need some help with guides or builds about YSG or anything else, first feel free to look at our other videos, as well as you can drop us a comment or come on our Discord to ask us any questions. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe the video if it was helpful to you, as well as if you would like to see more, because we're going to come up with a lot of commander guides in the next few weeks in order to help you get the best value out of what you have and to prepare for the future. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.